Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Music Podcast once again, where I have the distinct honor of sitting with Adrian Vandenberg today. Adrian exploded on the scene with Burning Heart from his 1982 debut. That caught fire all over the world, and he has continued to impress to this very day. Shared stages all over the world with Kiss, Ozzy Osbourne, Scorpions, Michael Schenker, the list goes on and on. And of course, Adrian spending 12 years or so writing, recording, and performing all over the world with Whitesnake. After bringing back the Vandenberg brand in 2020, recording a star-studded heavy record called 2020, Adrian's at it again. The Vandenberg brand is back. He's got a record called Sin. It's set to be unleashed on August 25th on the Mascot Label Group. Adrian, it is an absolute honor to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. What an introduction. I'm impressed. I'm starting to blush over here.
Well, you should be impressed. It is quite the career you've had. You're just considered one of the greats in the world at what you do. And it is that you've enhanced so many lives and given us so much great music. We appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks very much. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
After 35 years of dormancy, we have the Vandenberg brand back. You brought it back for the 2020 album. Ronnie Romero, Brian Tichy, Rudy Sarzo, a lot of star power on that record. Great heavy record. In this press release for Sin, I have a quote in regards to the newest record. I'd say it's one notch heavier than 2020. And I would probably agree with that. Was that the intention going into the writing of Sin? Was it the intention to make a heavier record?
Yeah, it was. What always makes a difference is after the 2020 album, we did a whole bunch of shows, and then the band starts gelling together more, of course, and at the same time you get used to the sound in bigger venues and outdoor stadiums and all that stuff. So I thought that, what people usually do when they've been in the business as long as I have, they start to mellow out. I always like to go in the opposite direction.
There you go. Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, you're going to be 90 years old and just thrashing.
That's what I'm planning to do. Yeah, that's the way to go.
It's cool, and it is a heavy record, man, and it's great to hear. It really is. How different was the writing process for Sin as opposed to 2020? 2020 pre-COVID kind of came out in that COVID time. The writing was before that. Sin kind of written in that COVID time. Did that change your process at all?
Not really. What did change it in a certain respect, like for everybody who was caught up in that weird pandemic, we were ready to go tour. We had a very extensive European tour planned and some Japanese shows and other stuff. And suddenly COVID hits, and you go, "Oh man, now what?" And of course, nobody knew how long it was going to take. So the tour that we had planned had to be rescheduled 4 times, and to schedule a tour is a very complicated thing that people maybe don't realize, because the people who schedule that have to keep in mind the logistics. You shouldn't be like one day playing in North Lapland and the next day in the south of Spain, so that doesn't work. And then the availability of the venues and all the stuff, so
Yep.
It was rescheduled 4 times because nobody knew how long COVID was going to take, of course. So after about the 4th rescheduling, and we were about a year and a half into COVID, I thought, man, I better start writing, because it doesn't really look like it's going to be over very soon. So when it was finally over, it started looking like it was going to be over, because in more countries the rules were kind of made simpler and stuff. And So I started writing, and I thought, let's hope by the time this record is done that we can actually go all over the place. And the timing was pretty good. We were done, let's say, I think it was last January or something.
Okay.
The record was supposed to come out in March, April, and it didn't work very well with the scheduling of our record company. So we decided, to put it at the tail end of the summer and take it from there.
Yeah. And that's a great time to release the record, I think. It is a summer type of it defines my summer. It sounds great at this time of year, and it's great to look forward to a tour this time around. Let's talk about the recording of the record. I noticed you split your time recording the record in Holland and Los Angeles. Why split the time? What parts got done in Holland? What got done in Los Angeles? And why split that time?
Geographically, we're a little bit of a complicated band because the the drummer, bass player, and me come out of Holland, of course. But even in a small country like us, our bass player comes from the very south of Holland. Our drummer Koen comes from the very west, and I come from the very east of Holland. And then our singer is from Stockholm, Scandinavia, so Sweden.
Yep.
So it was a little bit complicated to kind of smooth out a schedule. But what ended up happening is we recorded some basic tracks, as it's called, bass drums and bass guitars in Holland, and then we moved to Scandinavia to record the vocals. And then I flew to Los Angeles to finalize the guitars and to start mixing. So
Great.
it was quite an international record, you could say.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. That's the way to do it. That's pretty cool. How did you choose Bob Marlette? Now, Bob Marlette, for people who aren't familiar, I don't know where you were at. If you're not familiar, Seether, Black Stone Cherry, Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, just many things he's done. One of the greats, really, in today's recording scene. Produces the record. How do you choose Bob to do it?
Well, what happened for the 2020 album, we worked with Bob as well. My record company and management and me decided, you know what, I've always produced my own records.
Right.
We thought it could be cool to have like an American guy involved with an extra pair of ears, so to speak, who looks at the material fresh and approaches it, from a different angle than I normally do. Even though it turned out like exactly the same angle, because that's why we work so well together. The first time my record company suggested 3 or 4 guys, and I thought, I'm going to give all of them a call. And the first guy I called was Bob, and we got him just like that right away. And he said, how do you think the records should sound? I said, well, I would like it to sound as if you're walking straight into a really good rehearsal of the band. You stand right in front of the stage, and the sound smacks you in the face. It sounds crisp and clear and powerful. And also the other thing I mentioned is I would like to kind of imagine it if Led Zeppelin was basically 4 guys from 24, 25 years old, and they would make a record right now, how it would sound. It wouldn't sound like as woolly as the 70s recordings usually sound. It would sound more in your face and crisp and everything. So we totally agreed on that direction, and that's what we did.
Man, and that's what we get. It is.
Yeah.
I hear Sin, especially the title track here, and you get that Whitesnake feel. It has a Whitesnake feel,
definitely,
as you might expect. But it has a Zeppelin Kashmir kind of thing going on, and even a little Ronnie James Dio sprinkled in there. But it is, it is up front. It is right here. You can't ignore it. It's and it's crisp. So, I talk about that Sin title track and all of those elements coming into it. And then I watch the video, the lyric video. And the first thing I see is a white snake.
Yeah,
Now, you're obviously that's intentional to honor your white snake history, correct?
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And also, um, as you may have noticed, I also made the painting for the cover. I realized when I started to think about the lyrics for the song "Sin," um, that if I combine like 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 the word "sin" is like a tiny word, and it's got a very wide meaning. It could be anything from stealing a cookie out of your mother's secret cookie hideaway, or it could be a mass murder situation, so
Right.
everything in between. Um, and I thought for the cover, to connect your question with that, I thought how cool would it be to have um, the connection between snake and the apple, which would be the second name for New York. Uh, the snake and the apple, like the birth of sin, basically in the biblical sense of the word.
Right.
I connected the sharks that I painted for the second Vandenberg album in 1983, the Heading for a Storm album.
Mhm.
You may remember that there were three sharks flying over a highway in the middle of a desert.
Right.
I thought it would be cool to have them fly into New York, the city of sin, the apple, and
Right.
then connect it with the snake, the apple, the birth of sin. So there's a whole story behind it, and I'm quite pleased with the results, actually.
That's awesome because I was gonna ask about the album cover. It's very, very different, it has I knew it had some kind of message, and that's fantastic. That's why I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. It's very unusual, and you did that yourself.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
I was actually, a painter, artist, before I was able to make my living with music, because the kind of music that I love to make, which is this kind of rock, you can forget about it, about getting out of Holland. In my case, it happened.
Right.
Um, and But before that, I made a living of selling my paintings and painting and designing stuff for publishing companies and all the stuff. So I decided I feel very privileged that I can combine the two whenever I like.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, do you still paint?
Yes, I do, and this was my most recent one.
Okay. Right.
It was a bit of I painted myself into a corner a bit, so to
Yeah.
speak. I, I thought, I should be able to do it in 4 days, but the sky alone already took me 3 days,
Yeah.
and I had to be ready by the end of the week because I was going to fly to LA for the mixing process.
Okay.
So the last 3 days, I started painting like 9:30 in the morning or something, and ended up like 1 or 1:30 at night because it's very detailed, all those little windows and everything. It was quite a.
Yeah.
As usual, I underestimated the whole thing. I do
Right.
that all the
Yeah.
time.
It's great. It's great to have that too. It's all you. This is great. And I listen to so much of this too, and like Walking on Water. Very much could fit on any Whitesnake record. There is that heritage that comes along with your playing and the way you write. It just fits that Whitesnake thing so well. But it's still it's so it's so Vandenberg, and all of this
Thanks.
record. Out of the Shadows, interesting song for me. Closes the record. It's just a killer song. But we hear choir in the end, kind of a small choir piece, but we hear a childlike female voice in the beginning, it seems. What are these voices that we're hearing? Who is that we hear?
It's the young son from our singer Mats. He's like a 7, 8 year old boy, and
Okay.
Mats came up with the idea. He said, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool to double the melody that I play on the guitar, to double it with like a child's voice? It gives it a little bit of a eerie thriller movie type of vibe. You know something's gonna happen, but you don't know what it is, and then suddenly, bam, it bursts into that heavy riff.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I mean, it really sets the song up so well. I love it. It's perfect.
Great. Good to hear, man.
Really, really, really great. I have to ask you, there is a point in your career that I'm not sure how it sits with you. I have this record here. When you see this record, the Slip of the Tongue record, wrote the whole thing. It's a fantastic record. You don't play on it. Difficult time for you. I know, disappointing for you, but looking back at that time and how great that record is, those songs, how does that album sit with you now?
It's fine. It's fine now. As you can imagine, when I got a wrist injury while just starting the recordings,
Yeah.
that was extremely frustrating. But and also I didn't know whether it was ever going to be okay, because it felt like my wrist was totally blocked, my right hand wrist, and years and years later, it appeared that it was I developed two neck hernias resulting from a car crash in the early 80s that slowly but surely started pressing more and more on the nerve that kind of steers my index finger and my thumb from my right hand. But I didn't know. I thought, oh, what is it? I went while we were still in the recordings. I went to see acupuncturists and physical therapists, and nobody knew what it was, and it didn't get any better. So at some point, I flew back to Holland, and meanwhile, my dad had found a physical therapist who was specialized in musicians and dancers and all the stuff. So he got it kind of right before the tour started. So luckily enough, I was able to join the band again for the tour. Right now, it's a long time ago. The problem still kept kind of bothering me. So the last year and a half, I'm playing with my nails. I'm blessed with really thick nails, as you can. Let's see, what is it? My thumb and my finger. So I play. I use my nails for a pick actually, and my fingers also. So I find a way kind of around it, and it works. It's live. It's not as precise as playing with a pick, but I'm still perfecting the technique, and I'll see where it goes. I'm just really happy I'm still able to play.
Absolutely, we all are. Yeah, has it? You think it's changed your sound the way
I guess it did. Yeah, I can. Actually, the interesting thing is I can manipulate the actual attack of the strings a little bit more, because if I hit it with my nail flat, then it gives more of a click. And if I pull the string with my nail, then it sounds a little more aggressive, a little more high top end.
Right.
So I'm still discovering all kinds of shadows and lights and shades that I can add to the way I hit the strings. So it's an interesting process.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it gives you like a whole new set of rules to play with. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like my physical therapist at the time described it as like a sports injury, like a football player or a rugby player, or whatever. You mess up your shoulder or your knee or whatever, and if you're lucky, you can find a way around it and still play the sport that you love.
Yeah. That's great. That's great news for sure. Now in that interim, you do a record, this record, Manic
Yes.
Eden. Great underrated record here. And that was just after the injury, correct?
Yeah, exactly. It was in 1994, so 4 years later.
Yeah.
I had it more under control. I did adapt my playing style a little bit because with my right hand I couldn't do that machine gun again,
Hmm.
But I was never a player like that anyway. I've
Right.
always been like a blues-based player, very melodic. That's what I want. Those are the players that influenced my style when I was starting to play. Were the guys like Brian May, Jeff Beck, early Clapton in his Scream days, Leslie West a lot. People
Yeah.
like Michael Schenker, all the melodic players.
Mhm.
So for me, I've always been able to find ways around it, whatever as the saying in Holland goes, you row with the rudders you get presented.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. And that Manic Eden record, I love that record to this day. Another one, big star power on that record. Was that an enjoyable experience for you, working with those guys and coming up with those songs?
Yeah, very much so. Rudy Sarzo, Tommy Aldrich, and I became very good friends, obviously, in our mutual Whitesnake period.
Right.
So when David was going to do his project with Jimmy Page, I thought it would be a good thing to keep going with Rudy and Tommy, and I wrote those songs. And then when the great singer Ron Young joined us, the songs were already recorded actually. So Ron and I worked on the vocal lines a little bit to adapt them to his range and
Hmm.
his style of singing. So it worked out really nice. It's one of my favorite album that I've ever recorded. Actually, it's going to be re-released actually by Mascot Records
All right.
uh, somewhere next year. So it's going to be fun because I get a lot of questions about it. So it would be really great to see it re-released and for people to be able to get their hands on it again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because it's one that should be for sure, and it's great to hear that you like it that much. Because I love that record, and and Ron, that was a little bit of a different direction for him. With from Little Caesar, of course,
Yeah.
a different record, but he is just such a great singer. He just he kills those songs. It's just
Oh
fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, everybody needs to hear that record. So it's great to hear that it'll come back for sure. Um, you stepped away from music for a little while to be more involved with your daughter, if I'm correct. Um,
Yes.
and that I applaud you, sir. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I did the same thing in my career when my daughter was born. I stayed home, quit my career, and wanted to raise my daughter and be involved and all that. So I get it. Do you think your music would be different today if you didn't take that time?
That's an interesting question. I suppose so. I think I like to think that it influenced my music in a positive way because when I started with Moon Kings about 7 years ago, I think um, I, I I had the feeling I can do whatever I want because I was assuming people would have forgotten about me, and it was not a great time for rock. It's a lot better these days, fortunately. And so about 7 years ago, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to a little bit more back to my roots, to blues rock based stuff that I actually started with Manic Eden. Um, because for me, that's where I'm coming from. And it was a very natural thing for me to pick up the guitar and start writing songs again. And I did not have to think about pressure from a record company or from management. Oh, you got to do this, you got to do that. I thought, I'm going to do whatever my heart tells me to do. And start writing and see where it goes. And I was very happy with those records we made in those years. And we did a whole bunch of great shows with a lot of fun, a very, very unique um, chemistry with in the live shows with the band. Such a lot of fun that I would not be surprised if maybe next year or the year after we do like a short tour again with those guys. It could be a lot of fun.
Great. Man, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, always busy, and that's good. That is good. Your daughter doing well now?
She's doing great. Yeah, I'm really, really proud of her, as any dad usually is of his daughter. And
Yeah,
daughter, as people know, is everybody who's got kids. A daughter for a dad always has a special place. She's
yeah,
24 now, and you still feel like it's your little girl. It's
yeah.
she's on her way to become a lawyer. So in a couple of years, she can defend me in all kinds of brutal cases that people try to. throw on me, you know.
That is great. Yeah, mine's 23, and and I know, me being with her and being a part of her life is had a positive effect, and it's always it's great. It's great when you can when you can do that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a good feeling for sure. Have you considered, your story is so interesting and so many twists and turns and so much that you've done. Have you ever considered writing it down, doing a book?
Actually, yeah, I have more and more. I love writing. I was actually considering maybe start when we start touring next year, maybe spend some time every day to start writing down all the weird things that have taken place in my life, since the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be interesting for people, to and maybe I can inspire them with some of the decisions I've made in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like being a part of your daughter's life and stopping what you love to do to do that, and all of those kinds of things. The many bands that you've been in and the different styles that you've adapted to with different technique, and it would be a great thing to read, great thing to have out there. Yeah, I'm glad you're considering it for sure. And we can have some of your artwork too in there. It
Yeah.
would be great. Yeah. Is there something in that you've always wanted to do in your life, kind of a bucket list item for you? Something that you've always wanted to do, haven't had a chance to yet?
Um, well, I suppose the main thing is I love traveling, and that's one of the really nice sides of doing what I do. If you start touring internationally, you get to see places where you go, oh, I'd like to come back here. Another thing is I love going out for a great dinner because I love to cook. So I had some plans sometimes to go by like worldwide. For instance, visit like the best Italian restaurant in Rome, and then visit the best like American restaurant in New York, and visit, just get fat and happy.
I love it. It's great. What's your favorite dish?
Well, it's very varied. I love Italian. I love French. I'm in France right now, actually. I
Okay.
love Thai food. I love like American steakhouses. Like Ruth Chris or something. When you want to go a little bit luxury. But I also like street food a lot. Like in Thailand, you can eat the most amazing stuff for $2 in the streets.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I would think it's Japanese. I love Japanese food. Every time um, like shows are planned in Japan, I'm looking forward to it to play, and also the food. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I really have a bucket list because I love the life that I'm so fortunate to be allowed to live. That's basically it.
That's so great to hear. It is really you deserve a happy life, and it's great that you're living one. Really great to hear. Really great to hear. Um, Speaking of touring, speaking of traveling, give us an idea of what the tour looks like for this so far. I know you're coming my way in February of 2024, so I so look forward to that. But in the meantime, I know you got some Amsterdam dates there, right? And
Yeah.
how far are you going out? North America, Japan, Europe? How's it going?
Yeah, European tour for next year is being planned right now. We got a bunch of Dutch shows and possibly German and Swedish shows after the Dutch shows. They're working on it right now. Next year, February, March will be North American, the East Coast. Half of the tour we're co-headlining with Jeff Tate, Queen's White singer.
Yep.
The other half will be doing our own headline shows. And then the plan is after the summer to do the West Coast. So um, it would be great if that works out because then I can at least catch up with all the great people that I've played to been fortunate enough to have played through with Whitesnake and early Vandenberg. It's really looking forward to it. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's great. I've so wanted to see you for so many years, and it's the opportunities really haven't been there around this area. So it is great. Just outside of the Chicago area. I look forward to seeing you. And Adrian, I thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Such an honor. Such an honor. Thank you so much.
Honor. Thank you very much, man. I hope to see you somewhere around Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't wait. All right. I will see you then.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Adrian. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.